Take Care of Your Body by Rye with your host, Rylan Rosano. Anesthesia is the art of balancing pain and awareness, risk and benefit, science and compassion. Stay tuned in to see what's next.
I hope you're smiling because it's me, Rye. Hi, everyone. Today I'm with a really special guest. I'm with the Associate Program DNP Nurse Anesthesiologist at the University of Miami. Do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone.
She is amazing, and a really cool fact is she was my mom's nurse and esthetist when I was born, which I think is crazy because that was so long ago. And here we are. Fast forward a little bit, I guess.
Well, thank you for having me, Rylan.
Thank you so much for being here. So I have a few questions for you. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay, so my first question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in anesthesiology?
Well, I think at the beginning of my nursing career, which began in 1994 when I was in my undergraduate studies, I looked at different advanced practice or graduate level type of nursing because I always knew that I wanted to go beyond and get a master's degree. And I looked at acute care nurse practitioners. I looked at clinical nurse specialists, which that role has been sunsetted in the last, probably 5 years or so. But I had actually been introduced to anesthesiology by a friend of mine from high school who was interested in going into the Navy because he had a mentor that told him about nurse anesthesia. And it seemed pretty interesting. And after I finished my studies at Texas and I passed my NCLEX and I started working, I went directly into a cardiothoracic ICU. And I knew that critical care was a passion of mine. So it all began there.
Oh, that's so special. And okay, you're a total girl boss. That's basically what I got from that. Um, can you walk us through what a typical day looks like for you as an anesthesiologist?
So, with my role at the University of Miami, I am program director, associate actually. So, I co direct a program of doctoral students that go through a 3 year program, um, inclusive of didactic and clinical experiences across Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and West Palm Beach counties. And we train them to become doctors of nursing practice, and they are also certified registered nurse anesthesiologists. Um, so my day could be a teaching class. It could be teaching class in a simulation environment. So we have a 5-story simulation center that is basically a hospital. And we utilize the operating rooms and skills labs there to teach competencies and clinical skills for our doctoral students. On other days, I'm still practicing in the operating room or in the OB suite because obstetric anesthesia was a specialty that I didn't really go after. It kind of fell in my lap 18 years ago. And I'm able to wake up super early still and, be ready to go by 6:45 in the morning.
Oh,
And, a day could be, a few cases all the way up to, as many as 10, depending on where I'm working that day.
wow, that is very interesting. And I think it's cool that you kind of have like the best of both worlds. So you can teach and then also be in the field directly. And I feel like that can probably help when you're teaching others because you can kind of use a little bit of your background and your experience. So that's very fascinating. A question that I have is how do you ensure patient safety during those procedures that you do participate in?
So part of the practice is adhering to guidelines, recommendations, and basic core principles of how to provide safe and effective patient care. And this is what you learn when you're in a program and you go through your residency and you finish and take your certification exam. or board exam, if you will. And you have to always have backups and, do things the same way per the guidelines and recommendations. And that's what keeps everyone in check. Otherwise, it would be kind of like, the wild, wild west. But the important thing is the patients always come first, and, their safety is the utmost priority.
Absolutely. Is it hard for patients to feel comfortable, do you think, in that kind of environment?
I think so, because many times when patients come to an operating room or when they are in, let's say, a labor suite, they're anxious, they're nervous, and you have but a very few moments, a couple minutes to gain their trust and establish a connection, which I take pride in. I think that's important to feel safe with the person that is about to essentially either put you to sleep or give you some type of anesthetic in order for you to have your procedure done or have a baby.
Absolutely. Are there any common misconceptions about your field that you want to address?
So where do I start? There's a lot of urban legends out there about anesthesia and the fear of when you go under, that one is that you're never going to wake up, or something common in obstetric anesthesia is if you get an epidural that you're going to be paralyzed.
Word.
I assure you that, the specialty of anesthesia has been around for, a couple hundred years already. And we have the technology and the advancements over really within the last 50 years that have made anesthesia much safer than it was, in its inception. And so I think part of not having those urban legends floating out there is to have, be an educator. When you're with your patients, I think it's important to answer all their questions and be very candid and transparent because, they want to know. And I think it's their right to know.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that you prioritize trust. I think that's really important in any field, especially medical. How do you stay current on advancements and new techniques in the field?
So I think as a practitioner and any clinician, really, no matter what your specialty is, to, read the journals. One of the great things about being in a teaching institution or an academic teaching hospital setting is that you're always exposed to, you're in a learning environment, but that you're also exposed to grand rounds and new equipment, the latest, guidelines that might have been published. But if that's not the setting that you practice in, it's important to read the journals and the literature that is constantly being put out there to stay up to date on what's the latest and greatest insofar as best practice.
Absolutely. And do you have any like memorable or challenging experience that you've had in the fields that you want to talk about?
So because of my specialty in obstetrics, I think one of my more memorable cases was a patient who came in and suffered from what we believe was an amniotic fluid embolus. And that just basically means some of the amniotic fluid ended up entering into the mother's bloodstream during the C-section, and that can be very detrimental to the mother. And what I can say safely without violating HIPAA,
Yeah, absolutely. Don't do that. Don't do that. We don't want you to.
what I can safely say that what I remember the most is the team where I used to practice full time and was chief at for many years. We all came together, and ironically, I'm in the middle of a research study, a pilot study at University of Miami, where we're looking at team dynamics and communication in teams and across professions. And it really does make a difference when there's an emergency occurring, and knowing that everybody is there for one reason and one reason only, is to ensure that, that patient that day made it out alive. And I will say, I think the hand of God was on my right shoulder, that day. And, she was able to come back a year later and gave a testimonial, really highlighting all the people that were involved with her care. And it's still, when I think about it, I tell the story in greater detail, it still, gets me a little choked up.
Oh, that's special though that like you think about her still and like it's an important thing to you. And I think it's like truly like the beauty of the field. You can help so many and have like those kind of situations where people will never forget you. So, my next question is, do you have any advice for individuals considering a career in this field?
Ooh. Well, I think, in order to last in a field like anesthesia, um, while on paper people might be able to, get into a program, go through a program, to last in the field, I think you have to find ways to reinvent yourself and find things that will get you up in the morning at the crack of dawn to be in the operating room, or to be at the bedside, being a patient advocate. You really have to love what you're doing. You're not going to love it every day. That's the honest truth. And some days are more trying than others. But this is my 20th year as a CRNA, and 26 as a nurse. So
Wow.
it really just, um, you have to just find ways to keep the passion alive for what you do, because really, and this is something that I knew from a very young age, that I did not want to do something just to do it and just to bring home a paycheck, or to get up and say I do this for a living. You actually have to, have a passion for it.
Absolutely. And something that you said that kind of goes into my next question, which I think is perfect, is what gets you out of bed in the morning? Do you have any practices or things that you do to prioritize self-care before going to work or just kind of in your work week?
So because of the nature of, anesthesia and just, medicine, nursing, however you want to look at it, it's a very stressful environment. And even now in the teaching and academic arena, different type of stress. Um, so to balance that, I do and practice yoga. I've been practicing yoga probably since 2001. I was a very big Bikram yoga advocate in the beginning stages of my yoga practice, and it has slowly evolved into more of a hot fusion, hot vinyasa. And last year I completed my 200-hour registered yoga teacher training. And that was something that I've always wanted to do. That was one of the goals of mine for many years. Just couldn't find the time to actually get it done. But it is something that I lean into when things are very stressful, or, you've had a rough day, or even just to be introspective and be grateful for, being able to get up in the morning every day.
Absolutely. And from one yogi to another and yoga teacher, I'm very happy that you said that. It's very important, I think, like you said, managing stress, anxiety, all of that. And also, it's just a beautiful thing to kind of pair alongside medicine because it can help, individuals in other ways. And you can even recommend it to your patients if they're anxious before a procedure. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that you mentioned that. I'm smiling very big because of that. So my next question is, what are some strategies or practices that you implement to prevent like burnout and to promote your mental well-being besides yoga?
So I think it's important to be outside, be in nature. I think much of that has been lost in the age of technology, in the advent of the iPhone and, your actual phone is like a mini computer, and technology is really at our fingertips. We can send emails, we can edit Word documents or PDFs right from our phones. And, sometimes it's just about getting out there and, going on a hike, going for a run, even just sitting outside in the morning with a cup of coffee, reading. I think also I'm old school. I like the actual physical book and the actual pages. Probably not so much environmental friendly these days, and I do advocate for environmental friendly practices. But reading is such a great lost art in my mind, or that I see nowadays, because there's so many really great books, classics, as well as modern literature out there that can enhance your mind in other ways, um, and having other passions besides science. I love the arts. I love music. Music is such a therapeutic modality as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's really important, like you said, to kind of just connect and get away from the technology because that can impact our mental health and physical health. And
Mhm.
it's just good to kind of like connect with nature and sit in the grass and be grounded and really just be at peace instead of kind of getting involved in stressors. Sometimes being on our phones can stress us out even more than we already were before we picked up our phone.
Absolutely.
So I love those little tips and tricks you just provided. So I also have this question that I think you're very good at answering. How do you stay physically and mentally fit to perform optimally in your role as an anesthesiologist?
So a lot of times it's do as I say, not as I do. I think that has always been a work in progress for me, because probably the hardest thing for me to do is prioritize sleep. That is not something that I really, leaned into when I was younger. My parents didn't really have a curfew per se, as long as we got our homework done and we were up the next day. But, over the last several years, there's much in the way of literature that has come out about the importance of sleep and the importance of your body recovering and lessening a little bit on the caffeine. And, some people aren't breakfast people, but I do think that having something, even if it's small, to start your day, will keep you energized through, at least the first part of the morning. Um, Still a work in progress. I feel like my habits have gotten better the older that I've gotten, but I certainly, when I was first starting out, I did not have the best of habits. So those things, I think if you are already doing those things, you're one step ahead.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And my last question is, do you have any piece of advice that you want to give to anyone listening about your field or just taking care of their bodies in general?
I think, and especially, I shouldn't just say for women, because I think it affects everyone, men, women, and, non, um, people who do not define either as both. I think body image and having a healthy sense of self and learning to be a little bit kinder to yourself, um, especially these days with social media and what is out there as the ideal. Everybody has something to offer. Everybody has their own unique sense of self, and just having a little bit more compassion and grace, will go miles, if you will, in the long run for both the mental and the physical.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for joining me today. It really means a lot, and I'm so honored to know you. And I just think the world of you. I think you're a total girl boss. You just inspired me from this little convo we had. So thank you so much. You're an amazing guest to have on here. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much, Rylan. I appreciate you having me. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about myself.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Take Care of Your Body by Rye podcast. I hope you enjoyed this new podcast episode, and remember to take care of your body. There's only one of you. As always, with love, Rye.